Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik, Voss, and Loki's Season 2 finale puts it up with some of the best storytelling in the MCU. But could it have been better? I don't know about that, but head writer Eric Martin revealed that the ending of the show was almost very different before Marvel nuked it. What was the mystery nuked branch timeline of Loki Season 2? We're going to talk about it today because this is a sneak peek where we take the temperature of whatever we're watching while we head into the next episode or look ahead to the next week in nerddom. But this week, we're looking back a bit. Joining me on this episode of the sneak peek, my god of stories, it's Maude Garrett.
I think it's no coincidence that God and Maude rhyme to Americans.
Yes, but not in other countries.
No.
It's just here in America.
That's it. I become a god over here. I love it.
And by the way, if you want to hear us talk about the ending of Season 2 and Loki's fate, head on over to the Break Room channel for our Inside Marvel after show. Okay, Maude, let's get into this.
Let's.
Ahead of the finale on Thursday night, head writer Eric Martin spoke with Script Magazine. And I don't think anyone else really saw this. I just saw Eric Martin tweet this. I was like, why is no one talking about this? In that interview, he talked about his experience writing on the show, and he revealed that the original concept for Episode 5 was totally different before Marvel execs nuked it, in his words. Now, just to give some context on this, Marvel is getting supposedly better about putting like head writers and showrunners, those being writers in charge of their shows, but Loki Season 2 was still kind of in the old way of doing things where they would like have an executive, in this case it was Kevin Wright, who's kind of like the creative final say on everything. But then with Loki though, with the great work that Michael Waldron did in Season 1 and Eric Martin was there in Season 1 too, they gave him, I think, more control over it. But at the end of the day, the Marvel Brain Trust weighs in on everything, and that Brain Trust includes Kevin Feige, Louis Esposito, Mary Livanos, a lot of the names that you see, Brad Winderbaum, and Kevin Wright is on that Brain Trust as well, Nate Moore, and they can like veto or overrule anything. But there was this Episode 5 concept that everyone in the writers' staff and many of these executives were like, this is our favorite episode of the show. You know, I got to say, I'm not at all disappointed with any of what we got. Maude, you might disagree there. But interestingly, this episode, Episode 5, was apparently the episode that hooked the series directors Benson and Moorhead. And then they had to nuke that episode. So Eric Martin said, quote, "It would have been one of the stranger things that the MCU had ever done. It was a big swing. It was a really big conceptual swing, and I think dramatic swing. When that got nuked, it was funny because that was the thing where people would stop me in the hallways like, oh man, I'm so sorry, that was my favorite episode." Martin also said that it got nuked so late in the process that he had to write a new Episode 5 script over the course of a weekend. So Maude, what do you think happened here?
Well, I do think that because Martin also goes to say that his focus was putting emotions first. So the emotions are supposed to carry the story. And I think that even though he wrote that episode in a weekend, you can tell that the emotion was there. Like, I thought it was a very good job sort of feeling loss, feeling Loki's journey, getting to the bottom of Loki's deep desire, really understanding Sylvie as well, bringing that team together in a way that I think Marvel does so well. But the fact that other writers and other creatives in the Marvel space were saying, that's the best episode. And I think it sounds like if they had gone with that, it would have been a huge risk, but it would have paid off. And I'm so almost like curious, trying not to be devastated of what that episode could have been. And why it was nuked. Is it because it would have affected the outcome of the season 2? Or is it because it was just pushing sort of like the envelope too far? But I feel out of any show that could really push its limits, it's Loki. This is where you can kind of go batshit and make that exciting television. Was Episode 5 good? It was. Could I tell that it was a filler episode? Yes. I truly do think it was filler. I think that it was contained enough where the start of the episode and the end of the episode were probably the same, and it was all in the middle, the meat that I don't think had enough progress of the plot or the story. And I know people have disagreed with me in the comments when they made that argument after our Episode 5 breakdown. Obviously, don't cry over spilt milk, or, you know, don't mourn, don't count your chickens before they hatch, or any of those sort of sayings. But you're right. We're not talking about this. And I'm the kind of queen of chaos to wonder, what does it take to get a show idea nuked? I want to know.
I know. Yeah, because my thinking is they went pretty far. The creative and structural depths that they mined are as far as really my imagination could go when I was thinking of how the finale could end. Because the finale episode went pretty far. Woo! I mean, Loki Groundhog Daying back through the events of the series all the way back to season 1. That's really as far as I thought it could go. So you got to think, how much further could it have gone? And just so we're clear, you're not alone, Maude, in sensing that like this shorter episode 5 really felt like a quick reconception of some other idea. I believe our colleagues over on the Midnight Boys had a similar reaction. And I think if you, the viewer, had that reaction too, like, oh, I thought it was going to go crazier than that, I think that's completely valid. But a lot of times on TV shows, and I only just say this as a guy who has friends writing on TV shows, including some of the Marvel shows, or is pitching on these Marvel shows, often it's not like writers get bored with their own format of the show, but what is often considered internally the most celebrated thing is something that most breaks the mold. So like my friend Allison wrote on BoJack Horseman and wrote the amazing View from Halfway Down episode, which breaks the formula and is almost like its own bottle episode, but is one of the greatest episodes of that series. But it also is not like, in many ways, a typical episode of BoJack Horseman, but she's such a brilliant writer that it very much fit in with the themes and the journey of BoJack. But that often is what gets celebrated, something that breaks the convention.
Yes.
So it doesn't necessarily mean it's like the greatest episode in this case of Loki, both of the 2 seasons, but I think it is something that it most breaks the episode. So if we're doing some forensic analysis of what the episode 5 that we got was, what did it do? It picks up with Loki after the events of the Loom explosion. It introduces the origin stories of each of the variants, B-15, Mobius, Casey, and OB. And it doesn't go much further into B-15's origin. In fact, she is Verity Willis, but it didn't go much into that, this show. Renslayer and Hunter X5 pretty much disappeared from the show.
And Miss Minutes
for
gone.
these final 2.
Yep.
Miss Minutes
and
is
I feel
gone.
like Miss Minutes' character had substantial build-up in the earlier episodes that we didn't really see pay off.
And the fact that Verity Willis was a doctor during New York in 2012. So here's my prediction or my theory of what got nuked. I think Martin Benson and Moorhead wanted to go back throughout MCU history and pull another Endgame. Go back to the Battle of New York, go back to the events of 2011 Thor, go back to Thor the Dark World, go back to Ragnarok, and then go back to other events that maybe tied in with that. The fact that the Battle of New York was like a nexus point that tied in not only Loki's escape with the Tesseract that kicked off the Loki series, but like Hawkeye, we know, had connections to that. I wonder if like we could have gone back to the events of Endgame and then seen like the Avengers in their time suits in an alley, and Hulk is just kind of like smashing a cab half-heartedly, and we could have done a Back to the Future and looped again back on those events.
I mean, I can understand why that would have gotten nuked, and it's not because it wasn't a brilliant idea. It's because of money. It's because of like the star power needed for all that kind of stuff. It's because it was just it was dreaming very big.
The star power required, and even if you didn't require actors to come back, because I imagine they might have had a couple different angles that they could have like repurposed or just had Loki appear in the background of that same shot and composited him time slipping through it. What I think what it was is maybe creatively, because Eric Martin admits he's like, it might have been too big and it was the right decision to nuke it. I wonder if, like, no, Marvel execs are like, we've already gone back to that well too many times. We've already gone back to the Battle of New York. And I think maybe, because the fact that Verity Willis is in 2012 New York, to me, that just sounds like it is the ghost, it is the corpse of some other idea that, like, in the last few hours of the night, Eric Martin had to be like, I don't have time to come up with like a new story for B-15, but I really like that she is this character, so I'm going to keep a shell of that in this script as a little clue.
With very little depth. Yeah, it's just, and you're right, there's such coincidence that is the time and place for it to not kind of explore. Also, we didn't really get mentions of the blip and what happened in that time either. But that, I mean, I guess it's because that's not the focus. The focus is that this is all bigger than that, you know. We are dealing with time and timelines and variants. I wonder, though, my little theory is that mayhaps the finale was going to be different. I wonder if they had written 2 different outcomes, whether there would be a season 3 or if there wouldn't be a season 3. So I wonder if episode 5 was going to set off sort of what a very different conclusion could have been. And I wonder if we got this specific ending instead of a Kang Dynasty, instead of something else completely, because there was some setup initially. It did take a little bit of a swift turn, a change at the end. And I think that there was season 3, like end of season 1, we got that massive cliffhanger. Maybe we were leading up to a cliffhanger for an additional season, and then one was, no, we're not going to renew, but we need to cover all bases depending on which way it's going to go.
Eric Martin did say, and this is just what he said in interviews, it's where they arrived at, is that they viewed season 1 and 2 as 2 halves of a book. Like, first half of the book is season 1, second half of the book closes the book on the TVA, and that's what season 2 is. But we don't know when that decision was made. And I think the scene we have to look at is Renslayer. I just think the way Renslayer is left on this show, if that is the last we see of her, that is really, in my opinion, the only flaw of this finale, because it's just such like an undeveloped storyline of she just gets pruned from episode 4. That's why I think she would have had more in episode 5 and that original draft.
Agree.
And you mentioned the blip, Maude.
Mm-hmm.
Where was Rebecca Tormenet's origin as a high school principal in 2018? I think they specifically, and Eric Martin wrote on season 1 as well, I think they strategically put these characters at specific years in history where they could have gone back to the well of MCU Infinity Saga history.
You want to look at Nexus events as well. You want to look at things that absolutely, caused
I think
catastrophe.
They wanted to revisit the blip. They wanted to revisit the Battle of New York. But I think, the Loki writers were writing the first season of Loki, I think with the season 2 in mind. And then what ended up happening is all these shows started to kind of reference the blip. Hawkeye referenced the blip where they showed Yelena Belova going through it. WandaVision showed it with Monica Rambeau going through it. So maybe that's why the Marvel executives were like, you know what? No, we've just done it too many times.
That phase
it's
going to
make you guys are going to look like you're derivative of these other things, even though it was part of your original design. At this point, you got to come up with something different. And I think what we got of like Alcatraz was like freaking cool. Like I loved that we visited Alcatraz and it was like a DB Cooper kind of idea,
Casey completely changed as a character when you learnt his backstory, which I found was interesting. But it was all a bit shoehorned for me. It wasn't, I now that I've learnt that it was quite rushed and written in sort of a weekend, I kind of get that. I just think shout out to Mr. Eric Martin for making his colleagues like jaw drop. So well done. Whatever that was, even though we'll never see the light of day, good on you, bud.
Will. Yeah, and that's why I think it would have been a crazy budget thing, but I think episode 6 was mostly locked in because like the way it loops back to the Citadel, the way it loops back to that interrogation room, Time Theater 2-5, and I think Loki creating his own loom, that beautiful sequence. I think that would have required so much previs, so much design. I think there's no way that was like reconfigured. No. I think that was always the destined end of season 2. Okay. And really episode 5 was just kind of like whatever it was extracted. And then what we got was snuck in. And I think, that's what it was.
I have just one last thing I didn't get to say when we did our recap. I know that I was a bit sad that I was mourning sort of like the destiny or the glorious purpose of Loki. What would have been sick, and I'd love to run it by you because you might be like, no more, that'll wreck everything. But what if right at the end when he's sitting on that new throne holding all of the branches, with that gorgeous symbolism, and it kind of closes in on him and he winks.
Oh no.
Like that's what he wanted all along. So that was like always the goal, even though he does say, I don't even want the throne. But what if he's like,
not that I would have hated it. I just would have hated the way the internet reacted to it because you would have had some people who hated it and started trashing the show, and you would have had some people who just like blew it way out of proportion for like what it really means.
I just want him to be happy.
I do too. I think he is. I think Tom Hiddleston gave us just enough of a little smile, and that's it. That's him listening to some of Taylor Swift's songs and realizing she's happy and he can be happy too with Zoe Ashton.
Yeah, they're crushing Marvel at the moment. So go they power couple. All right, I just thought I'd throw it out there. I wanted to test it.
Let us know in the comments below what you think this mystery episode was. And I, again, think as a Marvel exec, not necessarily big or violent or offensive, but rather just something that, like, creatively, something Eric Martin might agree with might be the way to go when you change it. Anyway, be sure to check out nerdriot.shop. You can always grab the latest and greatest of new Rockstars gear. We just put up a new shirt design inspired by the finale, God of Stories. You can grab that shirt before the holiday season officially kicks into gear. Support this channel and check out our great merch options over at nerdriot.shop. And don't forget to subscribe to all 3 channels in the New Rockstars network: New Rockstars, The Break Room, and The Deep Dive. And hey, you can come hang out with us in person at our upcoming Los Angeles live show this Thursday, November 16th. Tickets are on sale now in the link in the description. And Maude, I'm going to have to apologize to all the attendees over getting that Jack McDonald's theory wrong, the Soylent Green Pie theory wrong. I got quite a few things wrong.
I still think they're eating the bodies of variants in the pie. Like, come on.
Do you think the automat's still open in the happy ending version of the TVA at the end?
Maybe.
I hope not.
This video was sponsored by Helix Sleep, who has Cyber Week deals available now with up to 25% off your purchase for a limited time. And look, I get it, finding the perfect mattress can be difficult, but Helix's sleep quiz makes it so easy. You just take the quiz and Helix finds the perfect mattress for you. I wanted a medium firm mattress with lumbar support that sleeps cool, and I got matched with the Dusk Luxe Helix mattress. Helix delivers your mattress right to your door with free shipping in the US. The mattress comes rolled up in a box and is super easy to set up yourself. Helix has a 100-night sleep trial, so you get more than 3 months to make sure that you love your mattress. Helix mattresses have a 10-year warranty. Helix even offers financing options and flexible payment plans, so a great night's sleep is never far away. I love my Helix mattress. I think you would too. If you're looking for a new bed, check out Helix Sleep. They have great Cyber Week deals available now. It's a perfect time to update your sleep with 25% off a Helix mattress plus 2 free pillows. Click the link below or go to helixsleep.com/rockstars to find out more about this limited time offer.
I have a couple of things I want to chat about news-wise, because there has been a lot of news happening at the moment. We on this show do usually look ahead, but this is kind of going to be a really interesting next year with Marvel, because we've only now got one Marvel movie on slate for next year. That is Deadpool 3. Apparently Captain Brave New World is going through some extensive reshoots. So that's going to be pushed back. Fantastic Four is 2025. Thunderbolts is 2025. Blade is going to be my mum's birthday, 2025. Kang Dynasty 2026. Secret Wars 2027. We are getting one Marvel movie next year. How do you feel about that?
Great. Take all the time you need to make these movies good. I think that is the biggest lesson we've learned from the most recent era, ever since Endgame, is Marvel has just tried to do too much and they have spread themselves thin. Our colleague Joanna Robinson, who was a co-writer of the amazing MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios book, while promoting this book, she gave an interview. I can't remember where I heard it, but someone was just asking her, what does Kevin Feige need to do to get Marvel back on track? And Joanna just said 2 words: do less.
Yeah.
Do less.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Feige is truly a great visionary for how these adaptations will work. But, and you know what? His executives are pretty good too, but he could not oversee everything that they were doing. They were trying to make too many shows at the same time. And if you go look at the history of Marvel Studios back in the early days in Phase 2, they did have a writer's program where they were producing a ton of scripts, but none of them saw the light of day until they got that's how we got like the Runaways. That's how we got Luke Cage. That all came out of that program. And Nicole Perlman, the great writer, came out of that program. So some of them ended up getting assigned to scripts, but like they really did treat it as experimentation. Whereas what they did with the Disney Plus shows is basically all the people they would have had that program. The program is no longer there anymore, but they essentially just like greenlit a ton of stuff, and we saw a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be like, oh, we got too much Marvel content, but like I think it really, really confused a lot of viewers. It diluted the brand. And so just having one big Deadpool movie, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it. We had one Avengers movie in 2012.
Do you know what that says to me? I mean, the Avengers movie in 2012, like it thrusts sort of like the storytelling into sort of a next tier, I find, because you did all the origins and then you brought the team together. I think that says to me that Deadpool 3, they are backing this movie. They are very proud of this movie. They think it's going to absolutely crush, and that one movie is enough to sustain the year. So I am now so excited for Deadpool, even though we've got to wait sort of 7-8 months. That to me, I think says a lot.
Now we'll have one movie. We might have some like Disney Plus stuff as well. Like I believe Agatha Darkhold Diaries is scheduled for later in 2024. I'm very excited for that. But like one Marvel movie, I think it's fine. I mean, if you look at the Marvel movies that came out in 2023, like Quantumania was clearly rushed. I think the Marvels was pretty rushed. I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was the only one that like really was the true vision of what that director intended it to be.
So I guess my only concern with pushing those dates back, especially for Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, is that I would have thought that season 2 finale of Loki was kind of going to lead into that. But with that delay, it's sort of lost all flow of that coherent storyline. What do you think is going to happen with Kang and Secret Wars now that it's way away?
Yeah, I can't even. That seems so distant to me. 2027, like, you know, my kid's gonna be like 4. Like, I can't. I don't know what my life is gonna be like at that point. The way I looked at the finale of Loki, at least the way they got this final cut, I really did think they just tried to end it on its own. The closest we got to setting up the Kang dynasty were like 2 things. One, Kang's he remains saying like, hey, there's gonna be infinite numbers of me out there, and Loki saying I'll get them all. And then 2, that case file report that said not only there was ruckus in the quantum realm, there were other related case file incidents on that paperwork. And right now I'm desperately trying to like zoom and enhance and address the contrast on that to see what these other related incidents are, because I think all those related incidents are the other Kangs in the arena. I think they just really buried these in the episode because they don't want to be too beholden on like the future of the Kang dynasty. And look, I got some heat recently when I did the an Invincible breakdown where I said if Marvel wants to move away from Kang, that wouldn't be the end of the world. And it's only just because Kang as a character doesn't have as much richness as Doctor Doom or like Thanos did. Kang was like a bunch of different characters that Marvel Comics just kind of shoved together into one character, and the coolest thing about them is that they were just whack-a-moles. But any one Kang on their own, I think the most interesting Kang ever was like, one, the fact that we had Nate Richards, the young Avenger, Iron Lad, and that kid feeling like his fate is destined to be a supervillain, and then 2, the Mark Waid Avengers Unleashed Kang War storyline from 2017 where we learn about Kang Prime. And then I just really like how Vision treats it like a Hitler baby proposition. But other than that, like I've never, there's not a whole lot of mine out of the character. And the way they've done it in the MCU has been pretty fun, but really just in Loki. I think we saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, like that is really what you have with Kang when you make him like a Julius Caesar type figure. They're not as
now Loki's superseded that. Loki's far more powerful than Kang. He's like, in that position.
I think he rivals Kang. I think they are now like Loki is saying, here's my vision of it. What do you think? I think he's still vulnerable.
Loki did the equivalent of going into the hyperbolic time chamber when he did centuries of math and figuring out every single play. So this guy in a single moment has become brilliant. So I think that Loki is so powerful that it's almost disrupted this whole Kang dynasty at all. I don't know. That's the thing. It's like I would have thought that the end of season 2 would have been the catalyst into Kang dynasty, and it hasn't been, and it's almost self-contained now. I don't think there's going to be a season 3. You still think that there could be a season 3, and you think that maybe Eric Martin's going to be back on for that one, perhaps?
I don't know if Eric Martin will come back. I was just saying, I think there is room for a season 3 if Marvel wants to do it. But right now, Maude, I'm with you. I don't think there will be one. Just because that Marvel right now really does seem to be pulling in and circling the wagons. Like, I don't think they want to just greenlight something that they have to like commit to and deliver on. But yeah, I don't see this as a setup right away for Kang Dynasty. It just seems too distant. I see it more as a setup for maybe another multiverse story, maybe Deadpool 3 or something like that. We might get a reference to it, but
I think that I don't want to spoil anything, but it seems like with this multiverse and branches, we're going to sort of steer away from the gods and superheroes that we've seen, and it's going to take a different sort of mutated step, maybe.
yeah, I think right now, like doing a true multiverse saga, you have to have the right people in play to do it. It's worked with Loki. We had some fun with it with the Spider-Men in No Way Home, but really you need to introduce the Fantastic Four before you can have like a real multiverse saga. Like it's tough. We have to. It almost really just works when you have a character who's already appeared on the ground so much that now you're ready to take them out and throughout the multiverse. So
that's going to happen May 2nd, 2025.
That's when Fantastic Four is coming. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like the 2024 Marvel movies, in my opinion, don't need to have anything to do with the multiverse. Oh, I'm sorry. I meant the 2025 movies. Yeah. Other than like Fantastic Four, I think the other ones, Thunderbolts, Cap 4, and Blade, don't need to go into the multiverse. Okay, Maude, let's do our heat check. With a huge week for Marvel and a lot of news about 2024 production delays, let's just kind of take the temperature of the MCU right now. Do you think we're still on an upswing, or is there still more valley to get through? What do you think?
I think that Loki has delivered in terms of quality instead of quantity. They're not churning out sort of 10 episodes. I think that they've done the best with those episodes in terms of storytelling. I think you're exactly right. They are going to slow their roll. When you look at sort of the last few years and the things that they've introduced that haven't gone anywhere, Harry Styles was in Eternals. What's going on with Eternals? What's going on with that character? There's been quite a few carrot dangles. And now it's like there's a field of freaking carrots and someone feels like corn, you know? Like, I don't know. I just feel like there were way too many cooks or there were way too many ideas. They were the branching. This is why you need a sacred timeline. I'm kidding. But
I mean, Kevin Feige was asked by Ash about this on the red carpet.
Yeah,
and Feige's like, Harry Styles is interested and excited. We're excited. And it's like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah,
it
we're
sounds
all
like
excited.
you promised something and there may be some contracts at play here, but there was just too many ideas and it needed to be streamlined.
Here's what I'm excited for. I think Marvel is not dead. And I'm just, what really bugs me, it just makes me laugh about this narrative that like Marvel's dead. And right now, you know, it's Sunday when this is coming out, so I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of buzz around the Marvel's box office performance. And a lot of people are gonna be like, see, told you so. I understand that people on the internet may say that. I think folks who work in the media and talk about movies for a living, you should know better. You know, like, just look at every other movie studio. They would kill to trade places with Marvel Studios right now, regardless of the Marvel's box office performance. Maybe not Universal, because Universal's had a hell of a year with Mario and Oppenheimer. So maybe they aren't feeling that
Zelda
way.
movie. Zelda.
With Avi Arad. Woohoo!
So excited for that.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I think, like, with Loki, it is... I can understand if you think, like, numbers may be off, but the creative triumph of Loki and how much fun the Marvels was and how much fun Iman Vellani is. Like, I think no other, like, movie studio has something that is still that strong of a franchise to where people are still going to come back for Deadpool 3 and Fantastic Four. You know? Like... that's why I say Marvel's best days are still ahead of it, because I think people overpraise the Infinity Saga, which was still an amazing accomplishment, but they did it without, like, the coolest characters in Marvel canon. Like, we have a future with a Fantastic Four coming back and with X-Men showing up. Like, how can you say that Marvel's best days are behind it, where for many years all we had to work with was, like, Ant-Man and Thor? I think we've all said, enough about how off some of the Thor movies are. They all do good work. I think Chris Hemsworth has been great for the MCU.
He's been great for Australia.
He's been great for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But, like, it's just, like, I think people view the Infinity Saga as this flawless, unimpeachable thing, and that there's no way Marvel Studios can top it. And it's like, cool your jets. Like, the Infinity Saga was an incredible triumph, but
I think it's because everything was going in that direction and then it paid off, you know? So that was like structurally what they were doing with all their programming, with all the movies, with the characters. It came together. It was great. And then you have something like Loki where I think it's so clever that they open up the drawer and there are Infinity Stones in there, you know? So you just get a real scale sense of what nearly, you know, what the whole precipice of Endgame and all of that was all about with these Infinity Stones. And then they are so obsolete. You know, they have no power and they mean nothing in the TVA. So I thought that was a really, really cool shift. What I think's happening, I think the strike has forced these networks to take a beat. Instead of that churning, instead of hitting those deadlines, instead of making sure that there's, you know, a lot of wheels turning, there was a forced pause. And in that, I think they're kind of reassessing. DC's been doing it for a little while, and I think that this pause has meant that they are, right, we've done that one. We're going into a whole new vision, a whole new phase. You know, buckle up. The ride's just beginning. And I think Marvel also said, okay, we did the next thing, and now it's like, take a beat. What's this upcoming slate look like? What do we need? What's important? I just think that this time off, yes, it's going to push things back, but I do think that there is going to be more of a focus on quality over quantity. And that is the difference between sort of like Loki and a Secret Invasion kind of thing.
Absolutely. Well, we'll leave it there for this episode of The Sneak Peek. Maude, it's been great chatting with you. And thanks for joining us every week on Inside Marvel. Just being able to talk about Loki with you throughout these past couple months has just been amazing.
It's been great. Yeah. And thank you for having me. And thank you for letting me have some quite outlandish theories from time to time.
We wouldn't have it any other way, Maude. So follow Maude on Twitter at Maude Garrett. You can follow me at EA Voss. I'll see you all next week. And thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.